get it. The OGs always told me what I start, I gotta finish. So I push it to the limit, so I can be the greatest. So I can look my family in their eyes and say we made it. Don't let life hand you nothing, you just gotta go take it. Always keep it 100, don't ever let me catch you faking. Keep a close eye on your circle.
Hey, y'all, it's your guy, businessman and entrepreneur, Darryl Riley. Welcome to the Post Prison Podcast. Joining me is my co-host and dynamic sister, Miss Cynthia Brady. Also joining us is our newest co-host, one of the smoothest young brothers that I know on the planet, Mr. Durell Green. Thank you both for taking the time this weekend so we could drop some more nuggets on our community. We like to start off by asking everyone to please like, share, and subscribe, and continue to support us on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email us at postprisonpodcast.com. And that should be enough of the housekeeping. This week's episode, the prison of unforgiveness. And unforgiveness is a term that we hear a lot. But I found when looking over this situation and trying to get a topic around it, I found out that it's really not a word that's actually in the dictionary. We actually think it's a word because it's the opposite of forgiveness, but it's not really actually a word. But it is a definition for it. And that definition is a state of emotional and mental distress that results from a delayed response in forgiving an offender. Right? So, I'll read that again. Unforgiveness. It's a state of emotional and mental distress that results from a delayed response in forgiving an offender. So if you don't forgive someone for an offense, you are causing yourself emotional and mental distress because you won't even act. And not only that, some offenses allow no allowances for error. We don't give people the benefit of the doubt. So, welcome my brother and sister this week to season 2, episode 2. Brother Durell, let's start with you, because I know Cynthia probably done taught a class on unforgiveness. What to you, what does unforgiveness mean? And do you agree that it causes mental and emotional distress?
Most definitely. Most definitely, I agree. I've lived in this state of feeling unforgiven, and I've lived in the state also of not forgiving other individuals, and more importantly, not even forgiving myself. And I would say that in both of those states, I was mentally, spiritually, and emotionally disturbed. And if you're disturbed in all those areas, it does also have a physical reaction as well. So like I would agree that it definitely causes damage in all of those areas. And I would definitely agree that it's a real thing. So I rock with that definition all the way. And that's my short answer with it.
Well, let me ask the second part of that. We talked about it being of emotional or mental distress for you not doing what you should do. But how does that make you feel? Especially since you've been on both sides of it.
When I won't even say I've been on both sides, because I still am on one side of it. I've been able to work through forgiving myself and forgiving other people. So I've been able to release myself from that aspect of it. But I know that there's still some individuals out there, probably to this day, that I've caused harm to people, whether I was doing it on purpose, because sometimes you damage other people on purpose, whether it's with your words or whether it's with your actions. You had intent, and then other times you just caught up in your own hurt, and you might damage other people just as a byproduct of damaging yourself.
Absolutely.
And you're not even like cognitive that you've done that to other people, or you're not even in a state where you care because you don't even care about hurting your own self. And them residual damages that happen, like they'll go unaddressed. And somebody, like, you might run into them and think y'all fine. And they like, nah, man, you hurt me back in 1999. and you never reconciled or made amends for that. And you'll be like, I didn't even know, like, I know that to a limited extent, some of those things still exist for me out there. And people have hit me up in recent years, you know, that I hadn't talked to for years, and asked me, like, why did you do this back in the day? And I had already forgotten about this thing, you know, because it wasn't a big, you know, it wasn't like that to me what it was to them. But I caused harm. And they hit me up like, I'm in therapy now. And they said that I need to address this thing that you did to me. And I tried to honor that as much as I could, because I feel like they genuinely was trying to get their stuff together. But I'm like, man, I still got people mad at me for stuff I didn't even know people were still mad about. And that unforgiveness, or, you know, just that state, you know, I think I'm cool. I don't harbor no grudges with nobody too much. But like, that's something that I still feel that I owe, and I do have to reconcile that I've caused that much damage that other people feel a way about me, if that makes any type of sense.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, Cynthia, come on. I know we always talking about unforgiveness. What's your
Oh,
thought on it?
oh yeah, I talk about it a lot. I talk about it in my groups. I talk about it with my family members. I talk about it with some of my Facebook friends. The unforgiveness is something that if we let it settle in our hearts or settle in our minds, it does do, like Brother Durell said, physical damage as well as mental and emotional damage. Somebody bringing up someone's name and you know that you're not through or you're not finished with what is transpired between you and that other person can even wreak havoc. So I've learned basically in my life that unforgiveness turns into resentment. And resentment is like you drinking poison, expecting the other person to die. And for me, I don't want to live with that turmoil. So I've learned to forgive and to get on about my business. A lot of people say, forgive, but don't forget. Well, if I keep remembering the offense, I have not forgiven. I have not forgiven. And it's beneficial for me to forgive for the simple fact that I was forgiven for all the, oh my God, for all the things that I've done or said. This mouthpiece here have probably hurt a lot of feelings, you know, and I've been able to forgive. But I've also learned to forgive people that don't ask me to forgive them or don't apologize. I've learned to let them go from their offense without them even saying anything to me about it. And I remember some people apologizing to me later on, and I said, honey, I forgave you a long time ago. I let that go a long time ago because I know that it's beneficial for the individual that's been wounded to let it go. I believe that offenses was created so that we can learn how to forgive other people.
Well, I think you struck something in my mind. You just at the end talked about letting go, which is really the act of forgiveness. You know, saying you forgive somebody and being cool around them after they offend you. Sometimes you can still have them feelings inside of you because you haven't done what you just said, let it go. I also looked at some of the results and some of the behaviors that people can exhibit when they are unforgiving of others. You know, and let's be clear. Sometimes I'll use this example. if I'm upset with something Durell has done, and I don't want to forgive Durell that for something he has done, that doesn't mean Durell did something negative. You know, that just means I put something in my heart. I allowed something to get in my heart, which created a feeling in me about Durell, and he ain't done nothing to me. He's trying to do his thing. But some of the results from unforgiveness, if you will, uh, are we become petty. You know, we become resentful, kind of desperate. You know, some of our plans can't even succeed because we so desperate to get ahead of the next person or do better than this next person till our plans can't even succeed. You know, and then bursts of anger. You know, I've seen people approach me, and when I look back on it, they were so angry. We never got to the part about them being angry and what harm I caused to be forgiven for. But I could just have this image in my mind of weeping and gnashing of teeth. You know, I've seen that much anger at me, and I still don't know what I've done. So it's easy to say, and I'm going somewhere with this. It's easy to say, move on from situations like that, right? But I don't really want nobody having beef with me, man. You know what I'm saying? I don't want nobody feeling that type of way about me if I done something maliciously to hurt them. So what do you do when you're in that space, Cynthia? What can you do when you're in that space?
If you have decided in your heart to forgive someone, but they can't let it go, that's not your responsibility. That's some work that God has to do on their heart, and they need to do on their own heart. Because one of the things that they are not realizing is it's really not solely affecting you. It's affecting them and their relationships. It's like a stumbling block. Unforgiveness is like a stumbling block. It keeps you from growing. It keeps you from developing. It keeps you from getting close to people that really love you. And one of the things that also is that we tend to forget the harm or the hurt that we've done to somebody else. We tend to forget the people that have forgiven us for our pettiness and the things that we have done. A lot of times people get mad, Darryl, because you're blatantly honest. And to me, it's kind of refreshing to have somebody that's blatantly honest, because I don't want to be stuck on stupid the rest of my life. If somebody has some information that's going to help me look at that and make the necessary changes I need to make in my life. Now, if you're wrong, why would I take offense to that? Because as far as I'm concerned, if you're wrong, that's your opinion. And I need to leave it like that. It's adulting 101. That's what it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Durell, we know you just kind of touched on that before we started taping about this little resentment and unforgiveness you got for this entity. How do you move past that when you done all you can do? What do you know? Are you intentionally holding on to that?
So I guess since you asking me to bring that out, I'll go ahead and just highlight it. You know, because there was a few years back. I don't remember exactly what year. I didn't do my research to give y'all an exact date. But I remember when the United States government as a whole apologized for slavery. And some people, you know, looked at that like, that's a good first step. That's an acknowledgement. That's something. And I looked at that like, come on, man, you can't just acknowledge something that is that clear and blatant and then just be like, oh, sorry for it. Like, that's something that I haven't, me as the type of Black man that I am in America, I haven't been able to forgive the United States government, you know, for the horror of slavery, especially the fact that you still won't take it out the Constitution.
Absolutely.
That you know, it's still legal if it's a punishment for a crime. So strike one. And then number two, like, we can't even get no type of reparations. Like, I don't feel like you're actually sorry. So like there was a childish resentment that I had against the government. The more I educated myself, You know, the more you read about certain history and conditions, and then you end up going through the school to prison pipeline. But we all know that that language wasn't out there yet. You just was a super predator, and it happened to you. And then you get out, and now people was doing studies, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is what you was all up against." And you're like, "What?" And like, there's, I think, like an element of a righteous anger and justifiable anger that you can have towards uh towards the entity, you know. But when I was young, I think I misdirected a lot of that anger at individuals. You know, like I'd be mad at the white person I saw at the grocery store, as opposed to, you know, the people that were policymakers and stuff. I didn't know enough to know who to be mad at. I just knew, like, man, this ain't cool what's happening out here, and it seems like it's happening from the top level down. So I just hate everything. And having that resentment in me, um, didn't it never got me nowhere in life. It really, except jail or or a courtroom, or you know what I'm saying, in an unemployment line, or just like in a bad spot. And I still, you know, I have justifiable, I believe, righteous indignation uh towards certain entities as a whole, whether it's DOC, whether it's, you know, whatever it is, you know. But I think that that's biblical. You know, we fight against, you know, not flesh and blood, you know, but we're fighting against all the isms, the racisms, the whatever isms it is. Like, I think that that's biblical. So I think I'm supposed to be mad at that, don't like that. And it actually serves me. I wouldn't still be doing the work that I do if I wasn't mad at certain injustices. And I don't think that those injustices are unforgivable necessarily, but as long as they go unchecked and unreconciled, I think that we're not supposed to forgive, you know, people that don't want to be accountable or responsible for the harm that they're doing. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna stay mad at that, if that makes any type of sense.
Yeah,
Let me
absolutely.
say something right quick. Let me say something right quick.
Go ahead.
I understand what he means about the righteous anger. And righteous anger is supposed to make us act upon things that are done that is not right, but that's done to another person or even done to us. I understand that part. But one of the things is that in order to develop the type of rapport that you really need with a person that you're having those issues with is by addressing it. If we hold it in our hearts, who is the person that gets the results or understanding of it if we just holding it in our head and holding it in our heart? We have to do something with that anger. We have to do something with that hurt. We have to do something with it. If we keep it inside of us, we become where we feel like we're victims, or we become the prisoner that we're talking about today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, it's what you said is the reason that we're here now. We have a justified anger against oppression because slavery is still happening. You know what I'm saying? And we've all experienced it. So I wholeheartedly agree with you, Durell. I think that you know, a lot of times the what causes unforgiveness is especially among Black culture, Black people, I'll just say. You know, a lot of times we get offended or get mad about something our family members say, and we don't talk to them no more until Big Mama funeral or Uncle Larry's funeral, all because we disagreed on something trivial, you know. And I think most unforgiveness kind of stems from a different disagreement and us not knowing or realizing that a disagreement is an opportunity to grow. Uh, I'm allowed as a human being to see it differently than you. I'm allowed that. So if I see it differently than you, that doesn't make you wrong or ignorant or stupid or any of that. It just makes me have my own view of it. And a lot of times we find ourselves in those spaces of different disagreement, especially among people of color. And we don't know how to move beyond that. Well, he didn't like what I said, or she didn't like what I said, or she disagreed with. Well, those are the healthiest spaces to be in.
Absolutely.
You know, if you
I think
disagreeing
people,
with me, I'm
I
gonna
think
say,
people
man,
have trust issues.
yeah,
When it comes to certain situations, the unforgiveness is one thing, but now you've lost trust and respect for me because we don't believe, or we don't choose to have the same side of this opinion or whatever. Now you don't trust me, or you don't respect me. And those are two different elements of it. Where, what does that have to do with us disagreeing about
yeah,
something?
absolutely. Absolutely. It's just such a small thing. I've seen many instances where things blow up just because somebody said, well, Durell, I disagree with you. And before you can get to the part of, here's why I disagree with you, you don't want to talk to me no more. We done blew up the whole get down. So Durell, I'll just use myself for an example, right? I know a lot of people may have some concerns or disagreements or unforgiveness, if you will. What's your advice to me on how to, because I'm not gonna up here and do no blanket statement where anybody I've ever heard, or please forgive me, to hell with all of that. You know what I'm saying? But I do want to move forward because there's some people, we'll just take our area for an example. We have an immense opportunity to do a lot of things, but it requires a lot of leaders. So what would be your advice to me? Because you talked about earlier, you said, well, the people of your generation, they got a lot of forgiving to do. You know what I'm saying? So toss me an alley-oop with some advice on that. And then we're gonna go to Dr. Cynthia next.
So I'm gonna answer this as directly as I can, and also, give an illustration that I think is relevant, and I hope it gets to the root of it. One of the key developments in my own life was being able to forgive myself, and until I was able to actually forgive myself first, and come to a proper understanding with, the things that I've done, it was impossible for me to forgive anybody else. And I think in our culture, there's a lot of like false self-esteem, that we give ourselves because we a lot of us are coming from broken places. And so we be like, hey, as long as I look clean, as long as I got this, I can hold my head up like this and not look at my true self and what I'm actually doing out here. And I think that when I was able, y'all know, like my younger brother's in the joint right now, doing a lot of years, behind something that is I don't approve of, and it's dumb. But ultimately, he shot somebody. And who's the first person that ever put a gun in his hand? See? So I've had to reconcile this with myself, with my family, with my brother, all of these things. And they made me feel like not worthy of forgiveness at a time. And when you're in a place where you feel like you ain't worthy of forgiveness, you still, no matter how bad you feel about your own self, you think you better than the other person that got a problem with you. So you're like, if I'm not forgiving me and I don't even like you, there ain't no way I'm going to forgive you. And I think that some people can be in those places. And so I said that just to say, if you reach a space of your healing where you really been able to like objectively analyze your own actions, your own behavior, things that you did on purpose and things that you might have did that were not on purpose, but they still were impactful. And you can look at those things, and then you can look in the mirror and be like, I'm comfortable with that person looking back at me. I like that person that's looking back at me. I respect that person that's looking back at me. I love and I nurture that person that's looking back at me, and I forgive that person, then all those other things become obsolete. Because if people hold on to that unforgiveness and they're not willing to, mess with you or something, you've already done your part of that job. And unfortunately, as much as I don't like it, maybe some people just ain't gonna get along, even though I always believe that there's opportunity in most cases. I mean, we ain't talking about killing people and blood been shed and stuff like that, like things that people would be like, this is unforgivable. So like, if we talking about damage that was done by words that were spoken, then words should be able to undo them words. You know what I'm saying? And so like, that's my overall probable my perspective on the thing. But I think that it really starts like people. You don't ever know who you're dealing with and what they haven't worked past in their own personal lives first. And that's not to say that anybody that they got a personal issue with you got their own personal issues they need to work on. I just think generally speaking, a lot of times when I see people be stuck in a state of not being able to forgive somebody else, it's really more about where that particular individual was at in their own spiritual, mental, and emotional growth than it is about anybody else on the outside.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You just said a mouthful, my brother.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm gonna touch on that you said is that about you have to forgive yourself first before you can forgive anybody else. Well, that goes with love, respect, and everything else. You have to love yourself, respect yourself, and forgive yourself. All of those things start with self, and being self-aware of when you're angry or you frustrated or you hurt or you're pissed off at somebody about something they done said or did to you. You have to ask yourself, why? Why am I mad about that? And is there any underlying truth to it? Let me look at my own behaviors. I've learned to check myself. Nobody have to check me. I've learned to check myself on certain circumstances, situations, and I don't have a problem apologizing for doing somebody wrong or saying something that hurt somebody's feelings. I had to just let somebody know recently, they said, you hurt my feelings when you said something. And I was just really joking with them, but they took it personal. And I know why. It was because of their self-esteem and their self-image. It had to do with them. But I still apologize because, I want them to know that my intentions was never to hurt you.
Absolutely.
I found out in life, if I pray for the people that have hurt me or that I have hurt, that prayer can go where I can't go. Like can't go to you and apologize because you're still holding some type of resentment. But I found out that prayer can go where I can't go. It'll touch your heart when I can't touch your heart. Yeah. And it can do, it can change situations and circumstances. You would be amazed at some of the people that used to be angry and frustrated with me or mad at me about really nothing. And then vice versa with me too. I've told my clients, pray for your family members. They have family members that still haven't forgiven them for the wrong they did in their addiction and holding them hostage with that. But a lot of them is hurt and angry too about the different wrongs that they experienced as kids, and even as adults from their family members that drove them deeper into their addiction. But I explained to them that if they keep holding that, it stagnates your growth. It keeps you from growing as an individual. It keeps you from seeing through the lens that you're supposed to be able to see through, that we are all human and we all err and we all make mistakes. There is no perfect people. And so I would say it start with, if you can't reach out to somebody because you know that there's something between you that's not going to allow them to receive you, is to pray for them. Pray for them every day and every night. Pray for blessings upon their life. Pray for their heart to be changed, and pray for your heart to be changed according to them. Because if you're big on energy, like you say you is, energy will break that. Your vibration and you and all of that will break that bond, that bond of deceit that's been put between you, the hurt, the harm. It'll break that. It will.
Well, what I gained most of all from what both of you said is that it does not really matter what someone has done to you. You won't be capable of forgiving them because you have unforgiveness in your own heart about your own self. So that's important for me, because sometimes I'll be in situations and I don't even know what I may have done to someone. And you could tell, man, it's almost like this person you could feel like they're ready to invite you outside. They got just that much resentment for you. And to hear that from y'all puts me in a different space. I could just try to move on around it and say, let that be their issue. But I think I learned a lot from just listening at both of you about myself in terms of forgiveness. And I think a lot of that, what this podcast is about, is helping us to draw the wealth from in ourselves, because we far from healed. We have some sidebar conversations that might get us in trouble. So I'm never too removed from thinking that, I have arrived, if you will. I did a lot of wrong in this community in 2 states. I hurt a lot of people. Some of it intentional, some of it malicious, but most of it is because of, them substances in my body. So for me today, I just don't want to harbor any unforgiveness. I have yet to get to the point where I really care if someone else is harboring unforgiveness towards me, because I think I'm approachable enough. I'm out in community and I do enough to where there's an issue, you can step to me. So thank you guys for what you've brought.
Yeah. Durell says something too about how it could be something with the other person. We don't know what people done experienced or went through, and they just can't let it go. Let it go.
And like you said, Darryl, like I was a heavy drinker for a long time. Partly when I was trapped in that prison of unforgiving myself. Couldn't sleep good, so I was getting lit till I passed out. And everybody that know me know I used to pass out at inappropriate times sometimes, and I'd be dead asleep. But I used to drink that heavy when I was in that prison of unforgiveness of myself. I'll be remiss if I don't bring up this, because I think culturally, generationally, and then interpersonally, with forgiveness, this matters. With the divide and conquer, my generation was put against yours. And a lot of us grew up with a lot of hatred towards our own parents.
Absolutely.
And like, especially with our daddies, and this was a thing that was done on purpose. This go back with me being mad at the government about certain things, like when I was a kid, I wanted my mommy to be my mommy. I wanted my daddy to be my daddy. I wanted my family to be my family. And when those things started tearing apart as a kid, I just recognized they were tearing apart. I couldn't understand all the intricate plans and designs, you know what I'm saying, that some people had schemed and did on purpose to attack both of my parents, to attack their unborn children. I just lived in it. And when I came into knowledge, I always was told my whole life, you ain't gonna be nothing, you're gonna be like your dad, you're gonna go to jail, you're gonna die early. You know how much I hated my dad and wanted to not be like him, even though I wasn't even growing up around him no more. And I started being him. I look like
Absolutely.
him. I act like him. Like I'm in jail like him. Like I was so mad at this man, even though like he had did some things that I could be mad about justifiably. I held that resentment in me my whole life. And all it did was get me kicked out of school. Like that anger that I had towards my parents, ended up being a poison to me.
That's why I tell
And I
people to
just
keep
want to,
their mouth off of people, Durell, is because you walk in them shoes. I did the same thing talking bad about my mom about a circumstance and situation, and I done almost replicated her to the T in certain circumstance situations. Keep your mouth off people because you don't want to walk in their shoes. It's bound and destined that you're going to do the same thing they do.
and I just want to say, I want to say this in the most compassionate and sensitive way that I could say it, but we got a lot of people in our community walking around with mommy and daddy issues, and they might be 40 and 50 years old. And I'm not saying that those issues are not valid. I'm saying that, like, once I was able to get out of that prison of not forgiving my parents, when I realized what it had to have been to, both of my parents, I think, was born in the 60s, and I had to think about the context that they were born in the context that they were trying to raise me in, and everything that they had to try to fight, and them losing, my baby sister, to SIDS when she was first born, and everything that my parents had to fight against. It wasn't easy to just try to be a parent then. And I didn't really become like an actual man until I stopped looking at my parents as mommy and daddy, and I was able to see them as Kip and Tammy that had lives and was raised certain type of ways and came together in these circumstances and these times, and then had children and then tried to raise them. And I could see how they both tried to instill certain things in us. And now I'm able, as an adult, I've been able to take those things and make them something. And I can say, like, the formula didn't look like it was supposed to be right, and God had to get in the mix and make it all come together eventually. But they both have put things in me, that make me successful to this day. And I'm so thankful that my parents have both lived long enough to see me not be an idiot anymore. And that I've been able to restore those relationships, because they've meant restoring those relationships. My mom always said, when you go to prison, I'm not coming to see you. And who was coming to see me? And I forged my relationship with my mom through prison visits. You know what I'm saying? She kicked me out the house the first time when I was 14 years old. She got me locked up. The first time I ever got locked up and handcuffed, my mom's the person that called the police. Like we had beef since for forever, and we forged our relationship through them throwback prison visits. She on the one side of the glass and on the other one on the phone. And my dad, a little bit more contentious, but we cool now. Like, I seen him for the first time in years when I had got out of prison. He crossed the street in front of a bus I was on. Like, and I hadn't seen him since I was a teenager. Like, that's my dad. And I tried to get off the bus. I can't even make this up. I was in downtown Port Orchard, fresh off the foot ferry, going to go get an application before I go check in to my DOC officer. And my dad crossed the bus in front of the street. The bus driver would not let me off the bus because he told me this isn't an official bus stop. So I had to cuss out the bus driver so that he would just kick me off the bus. And it was stupid. We'll save some of this for the book. I won't go too far into it. But I got off the bus and I yelled my dad's name, and he looked back at me and he took off running down the street. And I had to chase him and catch him. But that's how I began to forge my relationship with my parents. It was like prison, and then just having a real tough conversations where we cried, we brought up everything. And I really believe, like, the healing that came from me being able to forgive my parents and let go of some of that childish resentment and hatred that I felt has helped me to be able to forgive anybody and everybody. And I just want to say that to our people out there, like, if you got that that unforgiveness towards your people, towards your family, and you have opportunity still because they still breathing to get that right, don't be afraid to take the first step. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times, you know, and I'm not banging on my elders here. I'm just saying, like, if I wouldn't have been proactive in pursuing that relationship, they wasn't really raised to come back and try to like humble themselves to their children and be like, I'm sorry, and try to, we might gotta lead that. And if that's who it's on, make it right. Because living in that prison of like hating your parents and not forgiving them and blaming them for your childhood, I mean, we got to be adults at some point. And I just wanted to put that message of possibility and accountability out there, because I really think that it's important that we heal our families, we heal our communities, because a community ain't nothing but a bunch of families. And if you got a bunch of broken families, then you're gonna have a broken community. And
All
so
right,
I think we start there and we move forward. And I just wanted to throw that out there, and without triggering people. Like, you don't know my life, and I don't, but I'm just speaking for how impactful it was for me.
But you know, that's not an accurate statement to say that they don't know your life, because most of us come from broken homes. You know, most of us went through the crack epidemic. Most of us got people who've been to prison in the same situation that you in, so nobody's exempt from it. And that's, you know, for me, I'm kind of in the same situation, man. I didn't hear my parents have a conversation without a lot of conflict until I was well over 50.
Did you apologize to your daughter? Did you apologize to your daughter?
I did. And you know, it's real fragile right now because that's passed down, like he said. The idea for me was to be something my parents could be proud of, because I'm the oldest. And once I started to get to that place, it's about trying to take care of them now, you know,
Yeah.
through forgiveness. Because I didn't do the right thing because I was at forgiveness. I did the right thing because it was the right thing to do. And forgiveness came along with that. You know, as far as my daughter, it's touch and go, man. I've been out of a lot of spaces. I don't have a lot of influence in certain spaces, and she's grown now. So, you know, I still forgive myself. I still do what's right. You know, if she need me, I'm here. But you know, I try not to forget about me.
Yeah, my kids say I have asked all of them to forgive me, and they say they have, but there's a couple of them that they act a little strange sometimes.
Yeah. Unless a check involved.
But they know I love them, and it ain't nothing I won't do for them too.
And if it get down dirty, I'll be the first call she make. I know that. You know what I'm saying? So, hey man, this was really powerful and impactful. I actually learned a lot. You know, you guys, I'm really excited that you came on, Durell. You offer us a three-headed coil instead of Cynthia and I playing catch. And anybody can't sit in the space with us. So I appreciate you, bro. Much respect to you. Dr. Cynthia, you know, you always know what it is. We're gonna give you a PhD around this joint. And you know, to everybody that out there who's watching, we ask you to please continue to like, share, and subscribe. Support us, man. We just trying to bring relevant content and keep our community healthy. That being said, anybody got any parting words y'all want to leave the people with about unforgiveness?
I would just say, listen to what Durell said towards the end of his conversation, that, you know, if there's something out there, and even if they're not pursuing it with you, pursue it with them. But I also reiterate about praying for your enemies and praying for people that, you know, have spitefully used you, abused you, or did anything towards you. And ask God to create in you a clean heart and renew a right spirit in you.
Thank you, Cynthia.
My background is what my background was, you know, and I just hope that I hope that there can be some healing that could come from this, you know, and I just reiterated, you know, my wife don't got neither one of her parents, never had a chance to reconcile. And so I just want to say, like, I think that's really important. Like, if you know you got that in your life, just reach out and
Absolutely.
just understand, like, I don't know if you can imagine the guilt that some of our elders have had from being the type of parents that they was, that they carry with them, you know, this whole time. And when I got to talk to my people and hear their regrets and different things like that, and I saw them as like human beings, as people that were just as worthy as of forgiveness as I was, like I couldn't be mad at them, you know,
Absolutely.
and you know, I only can speak on my situation. I just, if there's opportunity in your life, you know, reach out to them people
Absolutely.
today, because
Absolutely.
tomorrow ain't promised.
It's not.
And let's again, we gonna end it how we began it. Unforgiveness is a state of emotional and mental distress that results from a delayed response in forgiving an offender, and there are no allowances for error. And let me just end it by saying to you all, thank you for tapping in. But if you can't forgive yourself, then you probably not gonna be able to forgive nobody else. So until the next time, thank you all again. Peace.
Every morning I wake up, all I know is get it. The OGs always told me what I start, I gotta finish. So I push it to the limit, so I can be the greatest. So I can look my family in their eyes and say we made it. Don't let life hand you nothing, you just gotta go take it. Always keep it 100, don't ever let me catch you faking. Keep a close eye on your circle,